We are very glad with Patricia and all the team to welcome you today. I'm Alice Audouin, founder and chair of Art of Change 21. Patricia is the director of the Art and Environment Festival. We are very happy to bring together amazing speakers today. And what a coincidence. You have noticed the temperatures now in Paris. In some places in France, they are 17 degrees above the seasonal averages. So what a good timing, should I say. We will have a very intense morning. I hope we will learn a lot. I hope many synergies will come out from this very important moment for us. Patricia, you will tell more about the festival, but before we start, I invite Clément de Lépine, director of Lafayette Anticipation. Thank you for hosting our event. Thank you for welcoming us here. And you know how much we love this place. And okay, so a few words of Clément de Lépine before we start our very intense morning.
Merci. Thank you. Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Clément de Lépine, the director of Lafayette Anticipation. When she invited me to address this wonderful audience, Alice gave me a choice between 2-minute speeches, 10-minute speeches, or 25-minute speeches, and to keep you all on edge, I've decided not to tell you which I picked. But anyway, I'll be brief, rest reassured. I just simply wanted to welcome you all today, artists, institutional representatives, entrepreneurs, researchers, to the Fondation this morning. And I'm especially grateful to Alice for being the most energetic and convincing driving force behind this beautiful gathering, the Festival Art and Environment, as part of, this gathering organized by Art of Change 21 as part of the Arts and Environment Festival. Today, I guess we are talking about, you've just said that today probably will be the hottest day on record ever for a month of May in France. So there couldn't be a more urgent time, I guess, to tackle those issues for us at an institutional level, but for all of us collectively. Today we'll talk about hospitality, I guess, intellectual hospitality, certainly, but also the very habitability of the world. And this Fondation aims at being a home for artists that precisely engage with these questions. So I think it's an exciting morning ahead, and I wish for all of you an enriching and elevating experience. And I know that under your guidance and stewardship, these ambitions will be met. So thank you all for being here, and welcome at Lafayette Anticipation.
Thank you, Clément. Just a few words about Art of Change 21 and this festival. And then we will welcome Karine Duquesnoy from the Ministry of Culture for also little words. Art of Change 21 is a non-profit organization founded in 2014. We are specialized in the relationship between contemporary art and major environmental issues. We bring together a community of French and international artists committed to climate, biodiversity, pollution, water, and we operate internationally through art prizes, advocacy, campaigns. We take action at each COP Climate, and we have created the Eco Design Art Prize our goal is also to contribute to the ecological transition of the cultural sector. And today we mix our two, pillars: the artists committed in environmental issues, as well as institutions, cultural players which want to accelerate their ecological transition and to contribute to a lower carbon society or mindset. Here you have a few images. It's very difficult to choose. In a 10-year experience, we are patronized by Olafur Eliasson. We are here in Dubai with Julian Charrier. We are here with Sonia Guajajara with our project Masbook. We are here in a conclave of the 21 with Ibrahim Mahama, Romuald Azoumé, Karine Yego, our vice president, and many other players from all over the world when we had a big workshop about the climate emergency. You can recognize Flair Oceania with Yuli Lucy in Glasgow, an installation with John Gerard, who is here today with us and who will have a keynote a bit later. Biocenosis was a milestone. We had an exhibition on biodiversity for the IUCN World Congress with many artists such as Thomas Saraceno and many artists dealing with animal cause and biodiversity. We launched United Artists for Climate at the last COP30 in Belém in Brazil with our partner Lab Verde, gathering 300 artists from 58 countries, including Anish Kapoor, Ernesto Neto. We collaborate also with many artists as ambassadors. Minerva Cuevas is our ambassador this year for our prize. Otobongan Kanga was our ambassador last year, Julian Charrier the year before, and Haroun Mirzad the year before. And so we like the idea of gathering many people, and we are glad to see our action as just a part of a global movement. We are only connectors, and so we hope that today it will be a moment where we will all be together in a joint awareness and action. And before I call Patricia to say a few words about the festival, I would like to talk about the team. We have our vice presidents here, Guillaume, Karine. We will moderate this morning with Patricia and with Stefano Vendramin, vice president. And behind a day like this, as we're a non-profit, you have many volunteers, dedicated, motivated people, Julien, Éloi, Antoine, Adèle, so many people, worked very hard for this moment with us, which is just a small part of a bigger program, which is our festival. Please, Patricia, tell us more about it.
Thank you very much, Alice. Thank you all for being here today. So my name is Patricia Friedrich. I'm the director of the Festival Art and Environment, and it is a great pleasure to welcome you all here to kick off our festival with the Arts Environment Forum at Lafayette Anticipation. Again, thank you very much to the Lafayette Anticipation for hosting us. Over the next days, a series of events will bring together artists, museums, galleries, collective, environmental experts, and many more to share their visions around the ecological transition in the art and cultural sector. It is a dense and very ambitious program, but we are truly grateful to have you all here today. The festival is a result of a long collective journey It builds on more than 10 years of work through Art of Change 21, particularly, as Alice mentioned, through mobilizations during COPs, but also more local initiatives as the Eco Design Art Prize that we organize in collaboration with the Palais Tokyo. When we started shaping this project, we did not anticipate such a large-scale program for this first edition, to be honest. But for me, it truly shows the mobilizing force Art of Change 21 has. And we're very happy to begin with such a rich and, we hope, inspiring event to all of you. So the program kicks off today. I'm just going to try the next slide. So you have an overview with very inspiring conversations with artists, institutions, and international guests that will continue also this weekend with our partnership with the Comité Professionnel des Galeries d'Art during Paris Gallery Weekend, starting on Friday with our Zoom environment selection, bringing together 12 galleries presenting environmentally engaged exhibitions alongside guided tours on Friday and Sunday. Starting next week, we have the ceremony of the 4th edition of the Eco Design Art Prize that will take place in Palais Tokyo, that will announce our 12 artist laureates, who will then follow a 2-day program on eco design at the Palais Tokyo. The program will be complemented by visits to key sites of the economic circular economy in the Greater Paris area. So we're very happy on this occasion to partner up with Lemon Tree and Matériaux Urbains in Pantin, La Réserve des Arts in Montreuil, but also Le Vendeur and the Photography Studio Lab d'Einden. Alongside those festival highlights organized by Art of Change 21, we have associated events. We're happy to partner up with Push on the inauguration of the exhibition Demeure at the cemetery of Pantin, as well as during Nuit Blanche with the inauguration of the artwork Hello World by the artist Fabien Leustic in the 3rd arrondissement on the 6th of June. This festival aims to reach not only professionals, but a wider public, and aims to really place artists at the core of the discussion, not as illustrators of change, but as key agents of the transformation, which is why we're especially proud today to host amazing 6 artists, John Jarrett, Gaël Chouane, Sarah Favrio, Marion Lavagenté, Taj Biestaker, and Mohamed Boursia. The festival also seeks to foster international dialogue. Me as a non-French person, I find this point quite important to bring together players from different countries to really foster the dialogue, and that may still feel a bit fragmented all over the world. So before we begin, I would like to briefly acknowledge our many, many partners and sponsors who made this festival possible. First of all, the Ministry of Culture that we have today, the Ministry of Ecological Transition, ADEME, LVMH, Collection Garance Primat, Maison Ruinart, and Land and Monkeys, who will be providing the buffet today. Also, as well as our project partners, Lafayette Anticipation, Palais Tokyo, for the 4th edition of the Eco Design Art Prize, CPGA and Push. Our media partners, Projet Média and Sehu, who will be covering the event today, as well as our press agency, Des Arts. We're very, very grateful for their support, and the event simply would have not been possible without their contribution. So, again, very glad to welcome you all here today, and we look forward to some very interesting conversations. Before we begin, I would just leave some keywords to Karine Duquesnoy, who is a senior official at the Ministry of Culture for Ecological Transition. Yeah, it's the slide after. Here we go. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here with all of you, and it's a wonderful idea. Thank you, Alice, and all the patrons for making this possible, because us, as the Ministry of Culture, we're trying to say transition, ecological transition, not like a fact and the things we can't change, but things in which we can act and we can be major actors. To be very short, I invite you to see this beautiful, you see, visual art is everywhere, even on the cover of our strategy. And it's translated in English on the website of Ministry of Culture. So you can find all the fields. It's a large, large landscape in which we are trying to act. And for today, there is one thing, it's training. And what we learn at school, it's a large part of our action. And it's because we are very proud to be partner in the Art Conception Prize, because it helped to change the way to act, the way to be an artist. And it's very, very important. And we are acting from artists already acting and professionals, but we're acting for the pupils in school. And today, at least 50% of the syllabus in the teaching school in every kind of art in France, theater, visual arts, cinema, everywhere, are already including transition and ecological fields in the syllabuses. So that's already a goal, but 50%, we are 50% to go to 100. So it's not, we are the half of the way. And that's very important. And the other field I would like to, because you'll speak about this, it's how to create differently, how to reuse materials, how to use less energy. It's good idea when we see the weather these days and the price of the energy these days too. So it's, well, the actuality is the newspapers are helping us to talk to our dirigent and to be more influence, to get more influence. So this kind is a large part of our act in ecological transition. So it will be a huge pleasure to hear all of you. And because to change the world, ministry is great, wonderful place, but artists, cultural institutions, experts, you are the one who make us able to think out of the box and to kick into fences. So thank you very much, and I wish you a wonderful festival and a wonderful morning. Very happy to be here all the morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Karen Duquesnoy. Thank you, Alice. Here we go. Yes. Thank you. So I'm very happy to welcome the first conversation to the forum, bringing together three major cultural institutions that are each in very different ways confronting the realities of climate change today. We have on my side here Camille Kirk, Sustainability Director of the Paul Getty Trust today. Thank you so much for joining us from LA today. Guillaume Desanges, President of the Palais Tokyo, thank you very much as well. And Xavier Rey, Director of the Musée National d'Art Moderne and Centre Georges Pompidou, thank you very much for joining us. What is striking is that despite their very different contexts, that those three distant institutions share at least one reality today, all undergoing or preparing for major transformations linked to construction and renovation. And perhaps that is emblematic of the moment we are in, because the title of this panel is not how do we avoid plus 1.5 degrees, it is reaching 1.5 degrees, what is changing. For years, plus 1.5 degrees was discussed as a limit we should not cross, yet we are now increasingly living in that condition already, with temperature records repeatedly exceeding the threshold and projections moving towards plus 2.5 degrees by the end of the century. So the first opening question to all would be, what does change when plus 1.5 degree is no longer a target, but a lived condition? And more specifically, what does that change for large cultural institutions like yours? Camille, perhaps we can begin with you. We are very honored to welcome your perspective from the United States and especially from Los Angeles, territory that has become a very concrete fronting of the climate disruption. I'm thinking specifically of the wildfires in 2025. And to start with, could you briefly introduce us to the Getty and how you approach the ecological transition to date?
Thank you. Thank you so much. First, I'd like to just say what a pleasure and honor it is to be invited to participate in this first forum. Congratulations and thank you very much. So I think one of the things I want to really press on everyone here is that I'm trained as a geographer. I do not come from an arts background. I did grow up in an art-filled household, and mother was an artist, but I am not trained as an artist or an art historian. However, I would observe that sustainability is a human problem, and the planet will be here whether we are or not, so whether we're thriving or not on it. So really the humanities and the arts are absolutely an instrumental part of the solution to a very human problem. So with that, let me quickly say a few things about the Getty so that you have some context for us. The first thing is most people are aware of the Getty Museum, but they don't realize that we're maybe more like a higher education institution. We have a conservation institute, which does bench and field research on conservation science. We have a research institute, which has one of the world's largest art history archives and a very robust scholars program. We are quite fortunate in that we have a foundation where we give out money. This is not so usual. Raise your hand. And then we are all, of course, we have our two museums, which I will introduce a little bit more in a second. And then we are all organized under a mother umbrella of the J. Paul Getty Trust. And my role is specifically across all of these programs, not solely for the museum. And this affords a very interesting degree of collaboration and synchronization across the institution. Let's see here if I can make this operate. Okay. So for those of you who have not been to Los Angeles, you probably know a couple of things just from common culture about it. So I've put those markers on here. One is Hollywood. That's the northmost yellow diamond. The southwestmost diamond, or southeastmost diamond, is Disneyland. Sorry, we did export that over here. Then I have a diamond where Los Angeles International Airport is, so should you come to visit us, you will very most likely arrive in there. And then I wanted to highlight where our two museums are, and I drew lines between these to show you the context of scale. So much like Paris, we are a very sprawling city. We are a very neighborhood-based city. And the Getty is in these locations that are far away from much of Los Angeles. This poses us an interesting challenge. We wish to be very much present and inclusive and engaging with our local community, but sometimes it can feel, because we do not have a fabulous metro, we have a metroette, we have a tiny baby metro in Los Angeles, it can feel very difficult for people in the community to come and engage with us. So we are working on this all the time. We have a very strong eye to the visitor experience. We are underway with many projects. We will close next year, so I feel quite a bit of affinity with the Centre Pompidou. I would note that our center, which we're closing next year for a glow-up before the LA Olympics. I would note that we are born in 1997 for that museum, and of course the Pompidou is 77, 20 years apart, but facing the same sorts of problems of aging facilities that need to address this change, right? Many kinds of change. Change with digital approaches, change with visitor expectations, and of course, change with sustainability challenges. So our original museum is the Getty Villa. This was built it was opened in 1974. It was the brainchild of our founder, J. Paul Getty, of course an oil man. We are born, I suppose you could say, of that original sin of fossil fuels. And he did good with this. He created this beautiful museum, which is modeled after the Villa de Papieri in Herculaneum. This did not go lost on us during the fires when we were covered with ash last January, absolutely covered. So it's very interesting to think about what the meaning is, centuries on from this disaster in Italy that we are modeled after. And then the center. So the center came, as I mentioned earlier, later in 1997. It is designed, it's a campus designed by Richard Meyer. It has our largest piece of art accessioned into our collection, which is actually a garden designed by artist Robert Irwin. And I like to say that it is our largest gallery. So many people visit the very largest gallery that we have. It not only holds our collection of later European art, but it also has our programs that I mentioned earlier, Conservation Institute, Research, and Foundation. So in many ways, it feels very much like being on a small college campus. And I come from higher education. Before coming to the Getty, I was with the University of California. I grew the sustainability program there at UC Davis, and I would observe that there are many lessons that are replicable from higher education over to the visual arts sector. And this is something very interesting because I watched this program grow in higher education with sustainability, and here we are at the outset of really accelerating this kind of growth in the visual arts sector. Very interesting. Quick facts. I see this slide did not come out so well when it translated from Microsoft to Google, but let me just draw your attention mainly to one thing, and that's our hectares. You see that we have quite a bit of land, and this land, much of it is in the Santa Monica Mountains. It's fairly good quality habitat, and the Santa Monica Mountains is a fairly unique ecosystem in California. It is a biodiversity hotspot, meaning both that it has a high degree of endemicity, so species that occur nowhere else, and also a very high amount of development, so more than 70, or about 70% of the land has been lost. So the land suitable for species has been lost to development. So one of our challenges is to leverage our assets, our land assets and our collection assets, much of which have beautiful nature-based art, to accelerate biodiversity solutions in a way that only a museum setting can do. My position was created about 2.5 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. I started about 2.5 years ago at the Getty, and my approach to sustainability for this organization is consultative and co-creative. I do not believe that it helps to come in and dictate what to do. I think you must have buy-in, and that happens only when you are co-creating your program together for making this kind of change. Sustainability is fundamentally at root a change management exercise. Humans they have a fraught relationship with change. We want it, but we don't. We have a hard time with it. And that is why I believe, that is one of the reasons why I believe art and the humanities have such an incredible role, vital role to play in accelerating answers to our contemporary challenges, some of which are sustainability, and there are plenty of others like AI. With what art can do, it helps us imagine a different future. And to do the change we need, we have to be going to something. We have to move towards an interesting future, a future we can all want to be part of, one that does not feel entirely dystopian. I would not argue for a utopia, but I think this is what art can do. It can help us imagine a really interesting future. When we are doing the work at Getty, we are focusing it in 3 buckets of effort. So internal operations, external capacity building or extension of capacity, and then our visitor and public engagement. And I've had us focus, for starters, on 5 areas: biodiversity, circular economy, decarbonization and electrification, engagement, and green building. And the reason for this is because these are the areas where we have most opportunity for impact and also most challenge of existing problems. So I will not go through all of our institutional actions. There have been many to date, but I will highlight a couple of things. One is that part of what we're doing as we close the center next year is to replace quite a few things that will accelerate our energy efficiency and improve our overall performance. We will be replacing our tram, which you arrive at the Getty and then you take this little train up, and this is a very energy inefficient train right now. We will be improving it considerably, as well as providing just a better experience. We will be replacing, we are underway with and will accelerate the replacement of all of our air handling units. Now this is a very technical and possibly boring thing to talk about, but these air handling units are going to do something so important for us. They will decouple us from steam for humidification. And as those of you who are stewards of collections know, part of the game here is to manage temperature and relative humidity. And we live, believe it or not, even though in Los Angeles we're not that far from the ocean, it can be very dry. And so we have to often humidify. And we do this right now with steam. And the steam is produced in large natural gas-fired boilers. We want to decouple from this. We want to decarbonize. And we want to replace this infrastructure. To do that, we first have to take this step, this very banal step of replacing air handling units. It's very disruptive. We have to close galleries. It impacts visitor experience. There has to be deinstallation and protection of the art that's in the galleries where the units are being replaced. So this is the nitty-gritty of making these kinds of transformations that falls to everyone in an institution to solve, these little logical puzzles. I will also just point out one other thing, which is that we are in the middle of a huge building, a huge construction program. And this demands that we come up with solutions for setting goals and then measuring our performance on those goals for our construction projects. So we are doing that, and that's the little chart that you see on the bottom, looking at how we can set better actions. Quickly on collective action, I want to give a shout out to Cleona Murphy, who's here from Hauser & Wirth, and you'll hear from her later. Cleona has been a real partner with us and with several other Los Angeles institutions in creating a collective statement of climate action and then unrolling that. So it's one thing to make a statement, it's an entirely different thing to implement. And that implementation comes in those little tiny banal things I was talking about, like replacing, it's not so tiny, replacing air handling units, figuring out how you're going to transition to green electricity, those sorts of things. But I know part of why you're here is because you want to hear what happened to us in the fire. I know there was a lot of media coverage. I will share. So in January, the Palisades fire, January of 2025, last year, the Palisades fire roared to life. And it was really, it was honestly very shocking. I remember waking up. It seemed like it would just be an average day. By noon, we could see massive, massive smoke clouds. It felt like AD 79 in Pompeii with Vesuvius blowing. It was terrifying to see so much dark smoke blowing at us. And it burned, the fire burned roughly 11.3 thousand hectares in Los Angeles. It burned over our property. And this is what we saw after the fire was put out at the villa. So our villa museum buildings and the collection were fine. That was due to a lot of hard work and also luck, very much a Louis Pasteur moment, luck favors the prepared mind. But we lost about 60% of our trees. And so we thought we're gonna have to do something to put this back. There was an initial instinct to just plant, and then our president, Dr. Catherine Fleming, pulled us back and had us pause and said, how about we take this moment to think really deeply about what we want to put back and how we will prepare ourselves for the future. And so we did a study trip in Italy to examine examples of villas from history, gleaned some principles, which we have here. We have inspiration, context, education, and experience. And we pulled these together to think about how we're going to approach a full landscape master plan. But of course, in the meantime, nature always comes back. We did help it a little bit with some hydro-seeding of native wildflower species, and you can see that we had our own super bloom this spring, very beautiful. And I guess I want to leave you on a note not only of the natural resilience, but a reminder, I will use the words of an artist, Los Angeles native artist, Jessa Calderon. We can choose to be the medicine, or we can choose to be the poison. Can we work with nature and not against it?
Thank you so much for this quite inspiring first start presenting all your, I would say, innovations on approaching sustainability and the ecological transition at the Getty. Guillaume, I would like to turn to you now. One of the things that the Palais Tokyo has been developing is the creation of a dedicated sustainability direction within the institution, along with conducting a full carbon footprint assessment. You've been also reflecting on a concept inspired by permaculture, not just as a metaphor, but as a way of thinking about the institution as an ecosystem. Could you explain what you mean by institutional permaculture, and how does this concept influence both the institutional operations as well as the programming?
Thank you very much. Yeah, when I arrived at Palais de Tokyo, all my project was based on this, how can we answer the ecological issues? And I already had the opportunity to work on that subject as an independent curator. And it was very interesting for me to think it on the scale of the institution. As you said, for me, ecological issues were not only about thematics of exhibitions, which is part of it, of course, but not only. It was more a global approach that we should have and change drastically our ways of doing. When I arrived at Palais Tokyo, one of my first action was to publish this little treaty of permaculture on institutional permaculture, which was not very cautious, I must say. A lot of people told me you should do first and tell after. And I said, yeah, but it's important to share. And it was a risk, of course. And when I arrived, I said, okay, we'll talk about that in 3 or 4 years. So now it's high time that we can talk about the results of it. That is why today, because I already talked a lot about institutional permaculture, I will just make a brief reminder. And also because this treaty exists online, so you can find.
Yes, we have some at the entrance.
And you have some here. But I just want to maybe make not a real assessment, but let's say about the question of where we are now. There is a lot that has been done. A lot, but there's a lot that has not been done. There might be a lot of things that might not be done, and this is very interesting to share with you in a way my not conclusion, but to say where we are now. So institutional permaculture was based on the idea that permaculture is a very interesting metaphor or inspiration for thinking. First of all, because it is a global approach, meaning that ecology is not one part of our, let's say, action, but it's a global. It goes from communication, management, programming, of course, but also using of the building and so on. The second thing, very important, is the question of brain print versus footprint. We talk a lot about footprint, which is, of course, very important. We did a footprint assessment at Palais de Tokyo, a very precise one. But still, for me, it's not enough. I mean, there is a lot of things which are not measurable, which is our impact on the ethical, because on the audience that we have, which is as important and sometimes more important than the actual footprint. And the third very basic thing of this is a question of necessity, which is very interesting in art, because we have maybe in the modern time lost this idea of the necessity of art, about what is in a way a mission of an art center. And this was very important to think about necessity. That is what permaculture teaches, meaning not what to produce and how to produce, but also why. Why are we producing? Which is very, in a way, subversive in a place like Palais de Tokyo, which is based on the idea of production in art. From that point, from that 3 points, the pillars of institutional permaculture I based on 4 main pillars, which are ecosystem, zoning, local network, and diversity of forms. It was 3 years ago. So now let's go to the reality of this now. So ecosystem means that I think now, and it is really the case, that it's not the time anymore to think by ourselves only, and to really pay attention of being part of an ecosystem in the arts, meaning that we are not going to work alone in competition or in indifference. That is why in Palais de Tokyo, since 3 years, we are maybe 1/3 of our exhibitions are created in collaboration, meaning not only touring the shows, but even in advance programming or co-conception of the exhibitions. And I'm very happy with my colleague here that next year, maybe one of the important steps will be this big project of Quinquennale de Paris that we're organizing, which is the first time I think that the major institutions, French institution and national institution, are working together on a project. And working, also I want to stress a point that it's never so easy to do that. Working in ecosystem doesn't mean to produce together always. It's sometimes mean not to produce together, but I think paying attention of what are producing the other, especially not to create new layers of productions that are not necessary. So that is an interesting point. The second point is the zoning. That's also inspired by permaculture, about how do we use the space and the time. And I think, I must say, it might be the most visible a part of what has changed at Palais de Tokyo. Zoning means how we can use this big space of Palais de Tokyo to 22,000 square meters, which is a very too big now, I guess, for only doing exhibitions. So we are using this space for other type of use. So as you can see here, you have the place called La Zone that we created, which is a place for not only working and having lunch, but it's also a place for having a certain kind of social gatherings, and also for programming, free programming, which is a case also of our new place called Le Hameau, a place that didn't exist at Palais Tokyo, which is a place for education, mediation, and inclusion through art, and a new place for artists at work called La Friche, which is a kind of residency program. Of course, all that exists in many museums and art centers, but when I want to say that in Palais de Tokyo, those places has been taken out of exhibition place, which are very big. And I must say, the zoning is also the rational use of space, but also of time. And I'm very proud that thanks to the teams of Palais de Tokyo, we have managed to do longer seasons of exhibition, which was very difficult for us, because as you know, we are also linked to the Fashion Week, to other calendars, other schedules that are not ours. And we managed to have longer types of exhibition, meaning now our exhibitions last 5 months. Instead of 3 before. So this is also a major change, also because for the quality of the reception of the shows, it's much better, I think. The other important thing is what we call circuit court or local network. which is also very important. Of course, very simple, the use, for example, you have this, the use of materials of exhibition which become tables, which is very usual and normal. And for example, this publishing, not publishing, let's say printing inside our own printing. This is also very important, which already existed at Palais de Tokyo. We have workshops, and I know that Lafayette Anticipation has also that. We have also a workshop for working. So this is also important that we can be more autonomous in our production system, but also we, and it's also based on permaculture ethic, we also give that to other people to use. What is important in permaculture about production and about having activities, it's not only not produce more than you need, and when you produce more, you try to share at maximum, which is also an important thing. And the maybe most difficult, I must say, thing is about the diversity of form, the biodiversity. As you know, our contemporary art field is very, as a history, I'm almost don't dare to say that in front of you, dear Xavier, has been, let's say, following a kind of perspective or a line which is quite dominant and which is not the best model of diversity, I must say, in generally speaking. And is same in contemporary art, modern and contemporary is the same, I would say. But I think we all, and I'm sure you do that also in the modern, to try to open also the diversity of forms and going a little beyond this, I would say, situated vision of art. I say it is difficult because we all come, or not exactly the same, but from the same, I don't know, schools, education, and so on. And I must say that I am very glad to the team of curators of Palais Tokyo who really strive to open us to new fields. Which was the case, for example, this is the example of an exhibition we did with Ramelzi, who's an artist coming from graffiti and street art. And it was very important for us also to give it to a real, not a side space, but a real exhibition, and which everything cross each other, which was also one of the example of the ecosystem, because this show has been shown 3 times and is now working on his 3rd step in Bolzano after having been in CAPC in Bordeaux. So all the application of those social permaculture is on its way. We have a lot of, as I said, we have a lot of things that has been done. I cannot make the list, from the carbon assessment to the recycling to also a policy of mobility of artists, of our teams, etc. The organization is very important. I shall maybe say something about work collectives. Maybe one thing that I would take into that is that this collective thing is very important to be collective. That is why also it was important also to share this traité de permaculture, which was also criticized and which is still criticized. And I think it's very important to be criticized because working on that ecological issues, I'm sure you would agree, gives you have to have humility. Because the results are never on the scale of the stakes, of course. So it has to be collective, and collective meaning also with the teams of Palais de Tokyo, which are very important also to bring the teams with you. And we have had a very important policy of education in the teams, which I'm included in that, of course. We try to educate each other on those issues. And work collective is also work collective with other institutions to share our experience, to share our success sometimes and failures and other times. I will make just a around all the things that we've done and all the things that still have to be done, I will just make this interesting maybe for you and for us example of how we proceed. There is a thing at Palais de Tokyo. As you see, the main space of Palais de Tokyo is called La Grande Verrière, which is this space at Palais de Tokyo, which is, I would say, more emblematic space for exhibition, which is the space of the big production of artists. And then, of course, this space has a problem, especially now, because we are in this kind of climate change. So it has, we had to close it the first year I was at Palais de Tokyo. Ironically, during an exhibition called Réclamer la Terre, which was around ecological issues. We have to close it almost 10 days because of the heat. And then, of course, I thought about that. And to tell you about what can permaculture give you as an inspiration is that when you read about permaculture, they tell you that you don't fight against nature, you adapt. You don't try. So it was not, the idea was not to make climatization or electric climatization in that space. First of all, it will be totally the contrary of what we expect, because it will also, of course, you know, the result of climatization. And also, it will be very difficult to do in such a big space. So because of my reading of permaculture, I decided to try to adapt and to imagine things to adapt. And when you adapt, a lot of good things can happen. It's not only frustration. It's not only having, which is says permaculture. It's not only to, I would say, decrease our bad effects, but it's to increase our good effects or our positive effects, which was the case in that case. So the first year, I decided to adapt. I mean, in a way, radically, meaning we closed La Grande Verrière, which, as you see here, it was La Grande Verrière, totally closed during the summertime. And then we proposed the artist to do the show in a lower space of Palais de Tokyo, which is very rarely used. It was Laura Lamiel, and it was on the underground level of Palais de Tokyo. And I must tell you, the exhibition was wonderful. It was one of the best exhibitions I've seen of Laura Lamiel, I must say. And because of the changing of space, because it was the same, the same scale of space, the same number of square meters. And the artist at first was a little reluctant at it, but when we proposed her and she showed the space, she said, wow, it's a wonderful space. And it was a wonderful space. That is why I think it was very positive. But you have also to shoulder what is negative. And what was negative was that because people were very upset about not having La Grande Verrière, then our ticketing and frequentation was very low, or let's say lower than it used to be. So of course we have also to take that into account, that there was a kind of frustration of the public, which I can really understand about, oh, I come to the Palais de Tokyo, there was the same amount of square meter, but there was this, so you have to change the mentalities too, and it takes time. And it was not a failure, let's say, because it's never a failure and never a success, of course, we don't. But then it was, of course, one of the things. Then I think, okay, I have to change my strategy and try something else for the year after. And the year after, during the summertime, we had this also experiment with Vivian Sutter, who's a wonderful artist. And what we did, it did that, you cannot see that very well in this photo, but then we opened the verrière of Palais de Tokyo, meaning that we let the air in at Palais de Tokyo, which was also very important and very interesting. First of all, we didn't close the space, or maybe only 1 or 2 days, except, so in a way it worked quite well, just using the natural air circulation. And also, I must say, I was very pleased because the show was, first of all, wonderful, but also symbolically, then the institution was open. And then it was so beautiful to say that, okay, the air is coming, we are not anymore a kind of closed space, we are not anymore a kind of closed vitrine or jail. And then, of course, the air, but also the animals, and I mean, you could imagine that there, as in the institution was breathing, and it was so great. And of course, I can tell you that it was a nightmare for the insurance, for the negotiation, and so on. Of course, it was very difficult, and I'm sure you know that. But I mean, it was. But we did it. We did it, and it was very beautiful because it was every day and totally always back. And then the third experiment that we do is this show, which includes by itself its own climatization. It's the current show at Palais de Tokyo with J.C. Darling. And the institution of the proposal of J.C. Darling was to do a show. And then, of course, he chose to show it with fans. But then I talked to him about our experiment, and we talked about air. And he included that in his production, and he included that in his work, working that with those fans, which nowadays are very not nice, but let's say better to have the experience, not only for the audience, of course, but for the people working at Palais Tokyo being in the rooms. So that is one example of how we can adapt to that, and we still have to invent things. None of those solutions are perfect, but we are still an ongoing project. And I must say that also with this exhibition of J.C. Darling, there is a kind of very interesting, again, gathering of our issues, because almost 100% of this exhibition has been produced locally, not only produced but recycled. There is nothing new in that exhibition. All the signs, electric signs, are recycled electric signs. The posters are posters that were used at Palais Tokyo before and turned on the other side. And all the material for the pedestals are built from recycled material coming from other exhibitions for most of them. So that's important also to say that it's not only about how we can welcome art and trying to do our best, which we do usually, but it's also about a global issue about what we program, in what vocabulary we sell to the artists, in what spirit we are working with all the artists, and that is very important. There is a lot of things to do still, and there is a lot of ongoing projects. Maybe one of the next projects that we are doing is that to change radically also the mission of Palais Tokyo, which will become under French law what we call société à mission, mission-led company, and it changed our comment ça s'appelle raison d'être, raison sociale, social reason. So it will change our status. Thanks to the Minister of Culture, of course. And then we have to change our status, meaning that it also gives us some duty to be société à mission, meaning that our goal is not only about profit, but it's also about ethical or better behavior in ecology and social. So thank you very much, and welcome at Palais de Tokyo.
Thank you, Guillaume. Thank you, Guillaume, for really showing us this very strong adaptive force the institution can have by being inspired by natural methods of permaculture. So I think this is very inspiring. Xavier Ray, the Centre Pompidou is also facing an extraordinary transformation with the renovations that are ongoing right now. Does that mean for sustainability at that scale? And how can you tell us a little bit more about how you continue the institutional life after the closing?
So thank you very much, and thank you, Alice, and to all the team of Art for Change for the invitation. I'm also very honored to speak in front of you, and of course I can't say more than Guillaume already said about a new collectivity scale of cooperation, and especially under the umbrella of the Minister of Culture of France between national institutions. That could be obvious, but it might not have been the case even in the recent past. And that's maybe the first starting point in your exchange and in our will to change the use of the resources that we have. And in terms, of course, of institutional scale, the Centre Pompidou is a huge challenge, but we learned a lot from the COVID crisis, and we are now also acting and changing, reaching for more sustainability thanks to the expectation of the public after COVID-19 and the confidence that we feel among the audience. And we hopefully feel stronger in front of what could be a kind of ecological backlash in the recent context. And that's why we are confident and we will be stronger together to find new solutions. And the first challenge might be for us conflicting orders in terms of course, will of change, but also need for budget funding, cultural exchanges, diplomacy, international cooperation. And you heard that we just opened a new branches for the Centre Pompidou in Seoul in Korea. And it's also a way for us to share without spending too many parts of the planet. But we are aware that it's not obvious to act. And of course, to go back to the project of the Centre Pompidou 2030, I just wanted to highlight also in that dialectic, the philosophical dialectic, that we are inheriting from a contradictory building, because it has been conceived in the early 1970s, but was already sustainable oriented, because one of the most outstanding proposition from Renzo Piano and Richard Rogers, we had the capacity of this building to evolve in a way that you couldn't know when it has been conceived. And what we are doing is without any extension is to enlarge our ability to welcome the public, thanks to this philosophy. And also trees on the piazza, which looks like very mineral today, were an innovation in the Paris of that time as the pedestrian zone that the architects who had not been asked to do that, decided to draw around the building and to be the most welcoming place for art, but also socially for public in front of our building. So when Laurent Lebon became president of the Centre Pompidou, there was an architectural project of renovation, and the idea was, of course, to push in the future a project of the 20th century, because I spoke about contradictory of our building. So we were heating the street in the winter and cooling the street in the summer, really. And so the project, so I know you heard about it, is expecting between 40 and 50% energy saving, which is our goal. And so Laurent Lebon went with a project which was not dividing architectural, technical operation and cultural projects. And that goes in the same direction of what you spoke to both, is that there is no just process on one side and programming on the other side. And of course, it's the merging of all these commitments that make a new project and new hope for the future. And in that context, so we are undergoing a metamorphosis, which is also an ecological metamorphosis. Technically, of course, institutionally, I already spoke about that, but also with all the stakeholders of the Centre Pompidou and the Musée National d'Art Moderne. And Alexandra Alquier is among us, representing the Friends of the Centre Pompidou, specially committed, helping us in both directions to improve, but also we are happy to remain the house of the artists, even if it's more complicated with us because of museum restrictions rather than an art center, but we are happy to evolve. And we are working internationally with the Bizo group and the ICOM to improve our practices with artists. And I'm happy to say hello to Sarah Favrio, who is with us today, and to go in both directions. And also, let's say that we have a strong heritage at the Musée National d'Art Moderne with the Centre de Création Industrielle, which was an independent part of the Centre Pompidou when it has been created in 1977, which merged with the museum in 1992. At a time, ecological concerns were not as high as it is today, but it's a great inheritance because the CCI was a kind of task force, a startup to think the social environment and beauty in everyday life, aesthetic in everyday life. And it's now a strength for us in the variety of the multidisciplinary fields of the museum to search, acquire and share with the public the innovation, especially in terms, of course, of visual art, but also in architecture, design, and mixing all this perspective in a new vision with more inclusivity to share with the public. And we have many projects now during the constellation, but of course, to make this as a basis for the Centre Pompidou when it will be reopened in 2030. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Xavier Ray. We're unfortunately running very short on time because this program today is very dense. So I would like to maybe conclude with a main question to all of you. Maybe we can share your insights in 5 minutes. What would you say still resists transformation for cultural institutions today? And what would you say is the main responsibility for cultural institutions in reducing their carbon footprint, but also in helping reshape the collective imagination around a plus 1.5 degree world? Camille, maybe you want to say?
Very short. I think resistance is humans have problems with change. Sustainability is a change management problem, so go study change management work. And there is much to be learned from fiction on change management. I would also say that our responsibility is, you've heard some examples already from all of us, but our responsibility is to find ways to share the cultural heritage while also protecting the planet through opening our minds to maybe letting go of some old practices that we have felt very strongly about. Length of exhibition, temperature and relative humidity conditions. How long will we keep our patrimony for? It will be hard to enjoy art if we have a burning planet and we live in Mad Max world. So I guess we are at this point of getting to ask questions now that maybe were too dangerous to ask even 5 years ago.
I totally agree.
Maybe in one word, because we have 45 seconds, I would say maybe the most difficult is among us, is psychological, is to give up some things in our missions and in our wish to save what is the most important for us. But it's not easy to know what is the most important for us.
Thank you very much for this panel. I will now give the floor to Stefano Vendramin.